Hey, good evening. Let's see what time it is. It's 6:47. Cheers. We have a new gloss. It's a large tumbler with very thin-lipped, titanium reinforced to resist the clumsiness that I am prone to have. So, my marble and rhinestone coaster and the new large tumbler fits perfectly. Look at that. Wow. That's amazing. Isn't that amazing? Look. Okay. So, I'm wearing my Los Lobos hat. Los Lobos, fantastic band, amazing energy. So Los Lobos, let's go south of the border to Mexico. In 1970, I went into the mountains to the east of a town called San Luis Potosi, which is a few hours north of Mexico City. San Luis Potosi is a very high mountain area, and to the east is mining country. They have silver, and they have mercury, and they have fluorspar. Many of you don't know what fluorspar is, but you've seen it. It's those purple crystals that they sell in spiritual stores. Those crystals made of fluorspar are very beautiful. But in industry, they are not used for spirits. They are used to mix with aluminum, to make aluminum more strength and yet flexible. So we went into the mountains of east of San Luis Potosi, which was a rugged trip, to look at a mine that was mining mercury and fluorspar. And on that trip, we also had a little anthropological expedition planned. And that is that in very ancient times, pre-Columbian, there was a small civilization in that mountain around a small pond. But oddly, the pond was fresh water and very small, but 90 feet deep. And they, for many hundreds of years, sacrificed to the pond. And in the sacrifice, they sent down a lot of idols and clay works and all sorts of precious sculpted things. And so the silt at the bottom of this 90-foot deep pond was filled with artifacts. Literally anywhere you would put your hand into the mud would bring up an idol or a sculpture or or a skull, if you will. Okay. So on the expedition, we were to be met by a geologist. And the purpose of the geologist was to take samples of the mine and determine, what the yield would be of the ore. And we were first going to do the dive. We had scuba gear, and we were going to dive into the pond to bring up some artifacts. And it was an adventure. So as we got to the location, the geologist was supposed to meet us there, and at a distance over the hill came the geologist. And he was at like maybe 90 yards, 100 yards. But I have a very high level of recognition when I see a person walk or I'm familiar with who it is, like in movies or in reality. From a distance, I can actually recognize somebody. And I recognized him. I wasn't sure who it was, but I saw him. I thought, I know who this is. How is that possible? It's the geologist meeting us for this expedition. As he got closer, I looked and I went, wait a minute. I know this guy. And I said, wait a second. And in 1965, I matriculated at the University of Iowa Fine Arts. And there was an art store in Iowa City that sold art materials to artists. What a coincidence. Artists go to an art store and buy art materials. This was the son of the owner. I knew him. I used to buy my oil paints in that art store in Iowa City. This is the son. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he looks and he's like, oh my God. Okay, fine. We got over the excitement and we go and we suit up to go scuba diving. So we have on our masks and we have oxygen and we have rafts and we're diving down into this pond and it's 90 feet deep. And then in the pond, there are like little mountains. I mean, because whoa, it's not a big pond. It's like the size of a large apartment, square feet wise, but downward. So we go down 90 feet, which is, when you dive 90 feet, you have to be very careful. There's a lot of rules. And we're bringing up stuff from the mud. We're bringing up little idols and all kinds of fantastic objects. And I notice that he's in trouble. So down there at like 80 feet, he's struggling, and you can tell he's struggling. So I go swimming over, and I tap him on the shoulder, and I stop him, and I show him my breather, and I take his breather out, and I hand him my breather, and he breathes, and I take my breath, he takes a breath, I take a breath, and we start up, and we have to go slow, because if you're going to go up fast from 90 feet, you're going to get in trouble. So we get to the surface, and he's not doing very well at all, but he is alive, and we bring him to the shore, and we pump him out and calm him down, and he's cool. He's okay. And we're like, what happened? And he said, I don't know. I've never done this before. And we said, you're scuba diving to 90 feet, and you've never scuba, you've never been. He said, I just figured, it couldn't. I said, Nolan, and that was his name, Nolan. I said, Nolan, okay, whatever. So he's okay. And I saved his life. So we're sitting there, and out of the bushes, because in Mexico, something strange is always happening in Mexico. And when it's strange, and you think it's strange, you know that something even stranger is going to happen next, because that's the way it is there. Sure enough, out of the bushes comes this very old man. He had to be 90. And he was dressed in all whites with a big revolutionary sombrero and a huge mustache and huaraches with the rubber soles from treads of tires. He comes over and he sits down with us and he says, can I tell you people some stories? And we're like, oh, sure. I mean, yeah. He's a revolutionary. He was fighting with Zapata. The guy's 90 years old. It's 1970. The revolution was in the early 20th century. He told us stories of the revolution. And as the sun was setting, he took a sip of tequila. We had a bottle of tequila. He took a sip of tequila. He bid us adieu, and he walked off into the distance. And then we talked a little bit with Nolan, Nolan had gone on a geological expedition to Mexico, and he met a Mexican woman, a real native, high country Mexican native. He married her. he had children, and he was living the life. Here's my story. Good enough.